And action. Welcome to a truly incredible episode today on the Action Podcast. We've got a large slate of films because we did not end up doing one last week. We just didn't feel it just didn't work out for us. So we tacked them on in today because we have a big one today, which is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. We've been looking forward to this. This has been on our multiple shows. Looking forward to. I feel like I've got something, a food thing, guys. Sorry about that for our watchers there. Yeah, I got it. So that's gonna be our first movie we're gonna be reviewing today. Second, we have the new iteration of Roadhouse, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, also directed by Doug Liman, which is on Amazon Prime now.
Who's like one of my absolute favorites. Like I could list you a million movies that he's done, or 5 or 6.
Yeah, for sure. And next we have Immaculate, starring Sydney Sweeney, who also produced it, and directed by Chapman alum Michael Mohan.
Chapman.
Yeah, go Chapman. Then we have Arthur the King, the Mark Wahlberg starring pick about the dog. Next,
the Saturday Night Live skit starring what's his name? Hey, you're a dog. How's your mom? You ever saw it?
I mean, I'm sure I have. It's not ringing a bell right now.
It's the dude from Andy Samberg. It's Andy Samberg does Mark Wahlberg, and he just talks to animals, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? How's your mom?" And he's like, he does like the perfect impression.
Okay.
It seems like
I might have seen it. I have to
it seems like this movie was like an expounding of that movie.
Yeah,
that skit.
Then we have American Society of Magical Negroes, starring Justice Smith and David Allen Grier. Next, we'll have One Life, finally, for Pete. Pete's been waiting to see this. I've also seen it myself, starring Anthony Hopkins. And then lastly, we'll review Shirley, which is on Netflix now, and that stars Regina King. So with that, Pete, let's get into the big show today, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Curious to hear your thoughts.
So, obviously, I mean, Ghostbusters, again, we've talked about it. We talked about it in the recently released podcast about Ghostbusters, the original. Ghostbusters is a staple in our family and between our friends and everybody that we know. It's all about Ghostbusters, and it's a part of our life, even down to the lines, and we use them every day. Again, I took a little bit of time before seeing the first revamp of Ghostbusters, but then when I eventually saw it like 6 months ago, I was completely blown away, and I was reinvigorated, and I was so excited. And I loved Paul Rudd, and I loved the young cast, and I loved Paul Rudd's love interest. I loved all of these characters. So now we're at Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now we're in the sequel of that revamp. And I will tell you that the addition of, I'm going to butcher his name, Kumail Nanjiani.
Well, it's not Italian.
It's not Italian, but this dude, he's so funny. I've seen him in a million things, and you've seen him in a million things as well. This dude is funny, and I thought that his character was absolutely brilliant.
He was great.
I thought he was hilarious. And then I thought that, the progression of the story was good. I enjoyed this film. Let's just get that out there. I enjoyed it. I think a 6.6 on IMDb is accurate. I think it's a good film to watch. I worry that this movie relied a little bit too heavily on bringing back a bunch of the old characters from the first episode, from the first movie. Like, I love bringing Walter Peck back because he's such a dick. But, I mean, bringing back the library guy and then bringing back the ghost of the library and then... I just thought it was a little bit too much. I didn't think it was needed in order to tell the story that they were trying to tell. I loved how they used the firehouse in the intro of it. How they're using.
I thought that was pretty brilliant. Yeah,
that was brilliant. I love how they used like modern technology. Like, what if the Ghostbusters were alive today? Well, they would have drone traps for sure. Like,
yeah, I like that. I definitely like that.
There was like really cool things about this movie, and if I watch it a second time, I think I'm gonna enjoy it even more. I just felt that, like, I always get worried when I see a lot of callbacks to an original when I'm watching not even an original revamp, but a sequel to a revamp. Like I
Right.
didn't think that they needed to rely so heavily on it. I didn't see Bill Murray a lot. I didn't see Dan. I mean, Dan Aykroyd was in it a bit. Winston's in it a bit, but I don't know. I thought there was a way to balance it out a little bit more. However, it's still a great movie, but I need to see it one more time to really get behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see it again. Um, like you're saying, I don't think all movies are created equal, and I think in this case, like you're saying, to me, again, going in with, I was slightly trepid because I really thought the last one did such a great job of tying in all these emotions and feelings,
Yeah.
and then still being a really good script. And
Yeah.
so, really, my curiosity was just how good the script is going to be, or is this going to go back to kind of the classic sequels of the '90s, where it's just like, okay. But I honestly really enjoyed the ride. Like you're saying, I loved how it started with going back in history. It reestablished New York as a character in this film, and I thought that was smart because the last one we went kind of away from New York. So I I I liked overall what they did. I don't like going into this trying to nitpick it.
No,
And
and Gil Keenan, who directed it, did a great job
yeah,
of, I mean, he positioned everything perfectly. I mean,
I thought the
he
camera
tried to
work was
tell the
great.
story that I thought he was
Yeah,
presented with, right?
I thought the CGI was good. I thought it looked good. I wasn't annoyed by the
You know,
CGI. Obviously, there's gonna be some CGI, but I wasn't annoyed by the CGI at all, and so I thought that worked. I thought a lot of things worked.
but
I don't
I love
agree
the
with you with
introduction.
some of the pullback things. I thought that was cute because
Mm.
I thought it was fine. Like it's a, to me, those were throwaway things, and it's not like it took up time space, but I thought there were clever ways that they did, like bringing Walter Peck back as the mayor. I thought that was creative
Sure, that
because
was fun.
there was really no way to bring him in, but that also developed an enemy that you're familiar with, and he's not really the true antagonist. He's
No,
a side antagonist.
but
So
I was fine with Dickless being there, right?
yeah, because honestly, like, you just made him somebody else, it's like it wouldn't have as much gravity to it. You know what I mean?
However, I feel like the little breakaways and the references and stuff like that like took away, even though it's not a lot of screen time. However, like Paul Rudd trying to become an actual Spangler in the movie and trying to connect with the daughter who's going through her own things with that other ghost, and like I thought that was the heart of the story.
Oh yeah, I think that's what
And
made
I
it
thought
good.
that if you would have just taken away a little bit of the fluff, I think, and focused a little bit more on that, I thought that scenes between Paul Rudd and who's
Phoebe.
barely in the movie. Paul Rudd's
Yeah, he's
barely in
not
this
in the movie a
movie at
ton.
all. If we would have focused a little bit more on Paul Rudd and that relationship and trying to build that as everything is going on around them, and then you sprinkle in stuff that's necessary to tell that story, I think that this would have been a slam dunk.
I don't know if I 100% agree with that, but
Okay.
I'm not saying I disagree with
Talk
it. I
about
just don't know if
storytelling.
I like kind of like you're saying. I need to watch it again. Um, 100%. But I don't like I said, like I didn't mind. I think they had to do a lot to reestablish a lot of things in this one, and
They
so
just remade the movie. Like, why do you need to reestablish stuff?
because this one's reestablishing the Ghostbusters again as a company, and so we had you had the Ernie Hudson aspect of it, who's like basically making it a corporation in a
Sure,
good
but
way.
you can get through that within like a minute or two of exposition in a way, right? Like you can just get through all that
Well,
and
no,
then get to
because
the
they're
heart
they're
of the
part of the
story.
character. They're part of the characters though too, and that also is like part of the whole.
I hear where you're coming from. I do. I just think that they could have been a little bit more strategic with how they told the actual story. And I think the story
Yeah,
centered around Paul Rudd and the relationship and trying to become an actual Spangler. The first movie, it was the emotion behind that movie was the fact that it was a Spangler, right? It was
yeah, yeah,
Egon.
yeah.
It was a saying goodbye. So if you say goodbye to one side, the next movie should be a reintroduction to the new Spengler family. And if that's
Yeah,
your focus,
they did.
I think you missed a little bit.
Maybe you could have gone deeper into it. Possibly. I would need to watch it again before I
Sure.
make a bold
Let's do
statement like
a
that. But
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire Part 2 podcast.
yeah, ultimately though, I like I said, I enjoyed it. I
It's
enjoyed it
good.
as a sequel.
It's real
Uh,
good.
and like I said, I want to see it again. This is a movie I'll definitely watch multiple times.
Yeah, I loved it.
And um, I've read some other reviews that I just don't agree with, but those people also are typically not that humorous or,
Yeah.
again, like it's what are you expecting it? This isn't, you're not watching The Godfather. And
Right.
so compare it to other films like blah blah blah. It's like that's not what you're here for. Like sometimes you do want a film where it's like I don't want to think I don't want to have to drag out 45 minutes of character development before I see a ghost. Like yeah,
Sure.
but
Sure.
again, I loved how I loved how the beginning of this again went historical, then kind of got into the action. Like I thought they did a good balance there. A lot of good things in this film.
So good.
Not a perfect film. I agree with you, Pete. It's not a perfect film by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
I think if they just would have made that slight adjustment, I
You might be
think it
right.
would have been a near perfect film.
You might be right. You might be right.
Little thing.
You might be right. You might be right.
Totally right.
So definitely check this out. We both recommend it. And we just reviewed the original one. So make sure you check
Check
out
that
that
out.
podcast too, if you want to,
Well,
get a little deeper into that one.
all
But
right.
we had a blast on that one.
So fun.
Thank you, Drew, for joining us. That's been a long time coming. But Ghostbusters again is one of our favorite films of all time. So
Who's
just
the
to
best?
be able to talk about it, yeah, we could have probably went on another 2 hours easily
Oh,
if we.
please. Easily. We could have talked to that movie like 7 hours. We could have talked about Ghostbusters.
Yeah. So check that out. Next, we have Roadhouse. Again, that stars Jake Gyllenhaal and is directed by Doug Liman. We also have a supporting actor role by Conor McGregor.
Right.
Billy Magnuson is also
Yeah.
in this. I'm going to start with it, Pete, and then you can go.
Go ahead.
Because I think you're going to have two factions of people here. I think, you're going to have
MMA
these.
faction
The what
and the
faction?
non-MMA faction.
No, no, no. I think. Did you see the original or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
The
important.
original was a staple. I mean,
I
it's like
didn't I haven't seen
why
the
they remade
original.
it.
I haven't seen the original. So when I watch this one, I'm literally watching the Roadhouse for the first time. So and I think that's important because I think there's going to be a lot of people
So you
that have
never
not
saw the Patrick Swayze version
correct.
ever.
No.
Okay, so you had no idea that Patrick Swayze's character was literally how Jake Gyllenhaal was, where he's not confrontational, although he will kill you, but
I
he's
knew Patrick
very,
Swayze was in the original Roadhouse. That's all I knew.
yes, but
I
his
knew there
character
were some
was
fight
so
scenes.
I might need to go first here. I'm sorry.
Okay,
But
that's fine. Go
Patrick
ahead.
Swayze's character in the original, he was so passive. And he looked to resolve every issue politely
Yeah.
and professionally and without violence.
Right.
And when none of those three things worked, then he would fuck you up,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Um, and so the way Jake Gyllenhaal portrayed this role was so respectful to the Patrick Swayze approach to the original movie.
Yeah.
So, with that information, I will hand it off to you for your review, and then I will jump in later.
Well, I did start the new one. I haven't finished it, or the old one, excuse me. Just for reference, you know what I mean? Because
Right?
obviously I want to compare and contrast. It's hard to compare 80s films sometimes with newer films, but
Different
I
world.
think yeah, but I liked obviously like the change of location. I think moving it to the Florida Keys, I think was a good decision. It's nice to look at. And then you also, I think you do have that remoteness that the other one also kind of had too, where it's like, things are different down here in the Keys, and that's a reality because you're at the edge of the country essentially. So you also can have a lot of illegal activity, which is true of Southern Florida. But then also have the remoteness that the original had of being in the Midwest.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I like the location pick.
Florida's a different country, man. It's just
Well,
crazy.
it's multiple countries within. It's like California, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Northern Florida is not the same as Miami, you know what I mean?
And
And
Northern California is not the same as Southern
no,
California. It's like
Central
night and
Florida
day.
is way different than Miami, yeah, or
Right.
Jacksonville, even, you know, like, and then even the east side of the Florida is different than the west side of Florida. So
Sure.
it's, you know, it's very similar to California that way. So this one again, being in the Keys, it's a different locale, and I think that they used it to its advantage. But again, like when I go into this movie, kind of the same thing with Ghostbusters, man, I'm not looking for a lot. And I think
Not looking for Oppenheimer.
I'm not looking for Oppenheimer. Like, especially for streaming films, sometimes it's like, man, I just want a film I can kind of watch, relax,
Put on.
just
Yeah.
enjoy myself. And I think ultimately that this film did that. Again, when I watched it the first time, I'm not dealing with this Patrick Swayze ghost affecting my
And he
thoughts.
starred in the movie Ghost too, which is
Yeah,
crazy,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
ironic. That's next level critique on my
Dude, you just blew my mind.
but so that worked for me. And then like right away, I'm not gonna give away some spoilers, but there's some right away, again, I really like the character, the passiveness part of the character. I love that. And so right away, I was really kind of drawn into this film. And
Right.
then again, I love the fight scenes and when he chooses to fight, when he doesn't, his kind of cerebral approach to it all. I really like that. It's very similar kind of my style myself. And so I was in. And then just the way I thought the villains were real assholes, and that played into its favor. So you wanted to see
Great
them.
villains.
Yeah, you wanted to see their ass kicked. I love
Funny.
Billy Magnuson.
Funny villains. Like they were
Yeah.
funny and dangerous and scary. All it's like good villains.
So Billy Magnuson, if you're not familiar with that name, he's been in several movies, but
Is
he's
he
in
Brand?
huh?
Is he Brand, the main guy? The one
He,
who has the boat?
he's the one that has the boat. He's the rich.
Okay, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Brand. He plays Brand.
Okay. I don't remember character names. So is the
I
first.
love this name.
And so he played he was the one that would bring dates like game night, but never be with the same one. And all of his dates were not always intelligent. So I loved him in game night. So, but this was a completely different role for him. And this one he's kind of playing just a pure
He's
asshole, spoiled kid kind of a thing.
psychotic.
Yeah. And so I loved him in this role. I thought he did a great job. Again, I enjoyed his casting of it. Um, I think Conor McGregor for some people is going to work. I think for other people it's not going to work. Um, I think I yeah, I know other people that
Yeah,
didn't like the Conor McGregor aspect of it. I think it could have been toned down a little bit. That probably for
yeah,
me.
I think so.
And then I don't want to nitpick this, but ultimately I thought it was a good watch. I watched it again just because some of the fight scenes were just that
Yeah.
entertaining to watch. Um,
No, it's so good.
the ending I thought could use some work. Um, the way they made Conor McGregor kind of so good fighting, which obviously he is good fighting, and obviously you know that going into it. So I almost wanted to see more a kind of a final battle. They didn't really have one, and that was kind of my only.
Well, well,
And don't give away the ending, of course, but
they did in essence have a final battle. It was just the lead up to that final battle was slightly ridiculous. Like I think
right,
you could have shaved off 15 minutes of the film and actually mapped it out properly where he would have to deal with Conor McGregor first and then have to deal with Brand second as almost a finality. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like just to kind of wrap things up in a bow. Um, I agree with almost everything that you're saying. I thought that, I mean, Doug Liman, let's understand who this director is. He gave us Swingers, The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Edge of Tomorrow, which is like one of my favorite movies. It's the
yeah.
most underrated sci-fi movie of all time. Nobody likes this movie except for me. And then the movie Go, um, which
I don't know if I saw that one.
when Go came out, it was called the teen Pulp Fiction when it came out. I mean, we got Timothy Oliphant as a young actor and
Mhm.
Katie Holmes, and it was a
I need to watch
brilliant
that movie again.
it was a brilliant soundtrack, and
Yeah,
it was paced perfectly. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Go. And then he did American Made, of course, which is like fun. You know what I mean? But this
Yeah.
is this is a real director coming into this, and he had a vision. And let's broaden the scope of this movie. The UFC is involved in this film.
Yeah.
Uh, they had like a real event going on, like a real legitimate
I like that,
professional
by the way.
fight.
I like that.
And what they had to do was like in between different fights, they only had like maybe 30 seconds to like 2 minutes to like 4 minutes or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
then Jake Gyllenhaal jumps in and the other actor jumps in and they got to act for like literally like
Yeah.
30 seconds
Entourage.
to
It's
a
very
minute.
Entourage style.
Very on, but you have this whole audience like from a real UFC event, like cheering him on. And Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal's like, I'm not a UFC fighter. This is ridiculous because he values the sacred arena in which the octagon is. So you have all of the, and then you throw Conor McGregor into the mix. So you have this massive push
Yeah.
to make an amazing film. And I thought that they really did great things with this film. They did it justice, the original Roadhouse, number one, with Jake Gyllenhaal and his performance. But they really kind of came through with the idea of, this guy coming in to save the day in this world of shit,
Yeah.
basically. Conor McGregor, you can make an argument like you were talking about. I thought personally that he was too jacked and that he was too over the top.
Yeah.
However, the more I watch it, the more I'm kind of okay with it because he
You
kind of
don't like him. You don't like him.
you don't
And I
like him at
think,
all. But you want that over the top bad guy, right? You
yeah.
need that guy. It's very Die Hard to have that over the top bad guy, right?
Yeah. Because he's
So
also, like you're saying, he's not the main villain. Billy
right.
Magnuson is pretty much.
At the end of the day, this is a great movie to watch when, especially if you can't go to the theaters, which you should be doing either way. This is a perfect movie to watch because it's exciting, it's funny, it's action packed. Jake Gyllenhaal crushes. Conor McGregor does a great job in his acting debut, and from all reports, he was a student of the craft the entire time, and
Yeah.
in
I
fact
did hear
put
that.
his effort into making sure that Jake Gyllenhaal looked and felt the part of a former UFC fighter. So you had these two worlds that just collided and created this amazing film. And I think it's exactly that. This is an amazing film. Roadhouse, go and see it. I would give it more of a 7 than I would a 6.2 on IMDb.
I
That's
would
just me.
agree with that. For again,
And
because
Jake Gyllenhaal's ripped as shit. I've never seen somebody with 19 abs before. I've
yeah,
never seen it in my life.
he's
Holy
ripped.
cow.
Um,
Good looking guy. Fuck him.
I was also a big fan. I thought Post Malone did a good job too. I thought he fit what they were trying to do as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, kind of cool to have when you can get a celebrity kind of cameo in there that works, I think that's always good. And I thought he did a good job.
Totally thought he was going to be in the whole movie. And then, he bowed out after the first 5 minutes and it was fantastic. He did a great job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I agree. Like I said,
Go see it.
I think for some people, the real Roadhouse people, I think they're gonna struggle with this film because they're just gonna not be able to watch this movie as it is. Again, I
Right,
was
but there's
because I wasn't, but I
there's
think
not a lot of real Roadhouse people out there. Let's be honest.
my fantasy football league, all these guys were just a couple of them were just like, oh, the original is so much better and blah blah blah.
Really?
It's like, I mean, it was
It was Roadhouse. Roadhouse was a throwaway movie in the
Pete
80s.
Bush, it was all on that train
Look,
too.
Roadhouse was good, but it was good only because of Patrick Swayze and the way that he performed that role.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great story, and it
And the
wasn't a
movie
great.
doesn't, yeah, the movie's not like doesn't crushingly hold up.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not this massive franchise. Now they had like Roadhouse 2, 3, and 4,
yeah,
starring Steven Seagal in number 3 and Van Damme at
I know,
4. It's
right?
not like this massive franchise. This
Yeah,
is a reimagining of something that was really intimate to a lot of people, and I thought that they
yeah,
did it justice, and I thought that they really showed respect, like Wonka,
yeah,
to the original character. And rest in peace,
for sure. I
Patrick Swayze.
think definitely check this out. I think worst case, you're just like I said, you're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's a fun ride. All
worst
right.
case, you're gonna enjoy it, but
Yeah.
that's a good endorsement.
Well, I think worst case, it's like it's popcorn movie. That if you're not seeing it more than that, I think you're in the wrong
Yeah.
headspace. Like this movie is exactly what it's supposed to be. All right, next, and we got to kind of run through these people. Next, we have Immaculate. Again, that stars Sydney Sweeney and directed by Michael Mohan, Chapman alum. He's directed a few other films, including The Voyeurs, which was also with
Right.
Sydney Sweeney. I'll let you talk first on this one, Pete.
Sydney Sweeney, I love her. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful. I can look at her all day. I know that this is sort of her project, right? This is the one that she's been
Yeah, she
wanting to
revived. She
make.
kind of revived a project.
Yeah, she's been wanting to make this one, and I thought it was really well done because it really does beg the question. Like, she's somebody who comes into the monastery,
Yeah,
the monastery, and she's completely devoted. Boom, she's pregnant, and nobody knows why. And so the real question of the movie is, and I won't spoil anything, is like, is this the son of God or is this the son of the devil? And I thought that the journey to get to that spot was really well done.
yeah,
And I thought that her performance was fantastic. Like she is so innocent and pure, and like people try to sexualize Sydney Sweeney all the time. They try to say, "Oh, she's just a blonde girl who's got big boobs," and that's
yeah,
all she is. They strapped her into this, you know what I mean, like this nun outfit, and then she performed in such a way where I believe that she was this little timid, innocent woman who was trying to give herself to the Lord and to give herself to that lifestyle. And I thought that her performance was fantastic. And I thought that the way that this movie played out actually played out better than I thought it was going to play out. You should go see this movie. Immaculate's
yeah.
really well done.
The reviews were high into it. I wasn't like I absolutely need to see this one. Obviously, we shoot the podcast, so that was the motivating factor. But then I actually did listen to a podcast beforehand, which I don't typically do. The Big Picture on the Ringer Network, and I they kind of sold me on like how good it was, and kind of like the same thing we're talking about Roadhouse, like just how entertaining of a film this is. And I agree with that, and I do think it was also really well directed. I thought the pacing
Really
of it
good.
was solid. I thought the pacing was solid. The camera angles, the sound design. I thought this was a really well crafted film.
And there
Um,
were little hints of things that happened around her that weren't over the top. They were just subtle enough to kind
yeah,
of keep you engaged in this film. Really
yeah,
well done. I thought it, and the ending, oh my God, the last scene of the movie, you're just like,
yeah,
the hell
yeah.
is
And so for those that aren't
so good?
super
Don't spoil it.
cinephiles, this movie was kind of essentially a different take on Rosemary's Baby, which Pete kind of already explained that detail. And so like that's kind of the comp that this movie is. I think honestly the only thing where I think this film's not for everybody is just simply because of topic. Like not everybody's just going to enjoy
Yeah.
this journey.
I feel like
Um
super religious. It's
like
not
I'm not well just even like the creepy and the tension and all that. Some people aren't fans of that. And so I thought this movie was good and well done, and I think for this genre I thought this was excellent. This is not
and
my
she
favorite.
she did incredibly. Like
Yeah, this isn't my favorite
incredibly
genre, so I don't have like amazingly glowing reviews of it, but I think the film was good, if that makes sense. So
She did
I
great.
appreciate
Great
it for
movie.
I appreciate it a lot for what it was, and I thought it was again well made. So check it out. If you like these type of movies, I think you're gonna love this. This is well done.
I'm
So
good with this movie.
yeah. Next we have Arthur the King. Again, this stars Mark Wahlberg. Um, this movie I thought is kind of exactly what you think it is. Um, this is a journey, kind of what you see in the trailer is like that's what this movie is.
Mm.
I think if you like dogs, if you like adventure, like you're gonna like this movie.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, it's a feel good movie. I think it's a good family movie. This movie's nothing crazy, but it's also like high floor. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, what I heard about the movie, and the response from it is very positive.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think the
positive
title,
film.
I think the title is garbage. But from what I understand about the film itself and what you have to get through in order to get to the race itself, and then once you're in the race,
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal film. I haven't seen it yet, but I can't wait to see it. Um, I've heard it's fantastic in that sense. If like you can,
Yeah.
if you're an animal
It was
person,
good. I
but
think it
you're
was
also
good.
an outdoorsy person, like this is a very
Yeah.
specific movie.
I just didn't think the movie was tough, whether it's how it was shot or the music. Like I think there's tension in it. I think there's, you know, there's character tension, all that good stuff. It's just but it's not like edge of your seat gripping thriller. This is not a thriller, right?
Sure.
So this is again, I think this is a feel good story, and I think in that sense, I think it executes what it wanted to do. And again, I think this is a good balance of films. Like you go watch Immaculate, then you watch Arthur the King, and you're gonna feel good, right? So I think this movie does its job and fits well into the landscape of films because kind of like Roadhouse, like sometimes you just need these movies that are entertaining, fun,
Sure. And
good,
it's
like
March.
Ordinary Angels too. Like,
It's March. This is when we get a lot of those sort of heartfelt movies, and we're going to
yeah,
talk about another one coming up.
yeah. Next we have the American Society of Magical Negroes, and this one, I had kind of high expectations for it. This one looked interesting, kind of original premise, and I thought this was going to be, a little bit of Harry Potter mixed with, I'm trying to even think of another comp, but I mean, not obviously full fantasy of,
Right.
but like a kind of a modern take on
But
that.
when you gave me the title, I thought it was Harry Potter meets like Malcolm X. Like I thought it was like a revolutionary sort of black movement, but with magic. And I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God, this is gonna be awesome.
right. Like
But I
even like
didn't
a
see
Book of
it, so I have
Clarence.
no idea.
Yeah, almost like a Book of Clarence too. Like that would be another kind of newer comp. So
Sure.
I was all in on the premise, um, but I thought overall this movie missed. It is a satire, so I think that's important to understand. But I think where this movie missed too is it struggles with tone, and I feel like sometimes the society got in the way of the actual good story. And I really was enjoying the almost like a rom-com of Justice Smith and the female, and like I kind of liked the relationship and how it butted and all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, then we have to cut back to the society. And the society, I didn't honestly just I didn't like the premise. I didn't think it was magical
For
at
shame.
all. And I thought it was just I thought it didn't swing for the fences good enough. I thought it was
Wow. That's
I,
too
I
bad.
thought it was more it more just was like that's it, like that's the route you went. And it
That's magical society. Like,
yeah, like because basically I'll sum it up fast, but basically the purpose of the society and their magic is used when white people are uncomfortable. Black people have this ability, this magic they can do to make white people feel comfortable again, and then the world is good again. And it's just like,
really?
yeah, it's like that's what the magic's for. Like, I don't know. I thought it was gonna be more of a celebration of amazing black people and how the society helped. Maybe I don't know, but I just didn't
Yeah,
like that
like
route.
what if there was a society that was actually behind the civil rights movement, but it actually came to fruition because of like this magic that they had, and it was a secret
Like
society.
Wakanda, right? Like that's what
Yeah, like something amazing like that. Like,
Yeah. Like that's what
wow,
made Wakanda so powerful and why
what
people
you just
gravitated towards
described,
Black Panther.
such a letdown.
Yeah, that's why people
Like,
were
what a
so
bummer.
empowered by Wakanda and Black Panther, and why Black Panther did part of the reason why it did so well.
I
But
officially, I'm gonna have the rights right now because this is published. I'm going to make something amazing about a black society of magicians who have actually propelled black people into the future because of their magic. Oh,
Yeah.
it's going to be fantastic.
It
That's
just
what they should have
there's so
gone
much
with.
potential, and I think it just didn't hit it. So
Damn.
all right. So anyways, by the way, I don't think it's a terrible movie. Like I wasn't like mad that I didn't see it. It just again, I thought this film missed it. And again, I really enjoyed the relationship aspect of Justice Smith and this other female. So it's almost like two different films. And it's like if you eliminated the Magic Society, this could have been just a solid rom-com. So like that's the weird part. So the movie works in some ways. I thought the magic part they really kind of missed, and then even the ending, like there was kind of a cool point out they made at the end, and I thought that was like another movie too that they could have done with it. Like again, I think I was just trying to maybe cram too many ideas together. So
Right.
take that for the truth. All right, next Pete, and you got like 1 minute. We have One Life starring Anthony Hopkins. Go for
Okay.
it.
This is if I can sum it up, this is a poor man's Schindler's List. Um, the director did some great stuff in terms of TV. He did Black Mirror, Penny Dreadful. This is Anthony Hopkins. It's Helena Bonham Carter. This is a beautifully told story about a London broker who, you know, leading up to World War II, he rescued over 600 kids from the Nazi occupied Czechoslovakia. This is the Czechoslovakia Schindler's List movie. This movie is really good, and you go along the journey, but the real impact of this movie is the very end of it. And I will not spoil it for you because this has been a long time coming for me to talk about this movie. And I just want you to see the ending of this movie because I was crying at the end of this movie because of how amazing it was. Fantastic movie.
Yeah, I did see this. I enjoyed it, but then I nodded off in the middle because I saw this movie like at 10:30 in the theater. And so I missed the middle. I missed a lot of like the important stuff. So I don't really have an opinion, but I agree with you. The ending is really, really well done. I enjoyed the movie from what I saw, but I missed a solid, decent chunk. So awesome. Next, we're going to move into Shirley, which you can see now on Netflix. That's starring Regina King. Pete, go ahead and knock this one out.
This is a movie that really displays an unheard of, an unknown moment in Black history. So the first Black woman is elected to Congress, and she decides because of that moment, you know what? Why can't I just be president? And she decides that she's going to do everything in her power to become president. Lance Reddick is in this. This might be his last performance. Rest in peace. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. It was great to see Terrence Howard again in a role of significance because he's kind of done some things that nobody's heard about. But this is another role where Terrence Howard just comes in for a couple of lines and just crushes. Um, this is a fantastic biopic of this woman, Shirley Chisholm, who decides to make a presidential run in like 1972. And the first bit of this movie, you just get through it. Or this is on Netflix, yes?
Yeah.
Just get through the first 15, 20 minutes of this movie, and then each thing that happens after that, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Or oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then it just gets to the end, and then you've gone through this journey, and then the end happens, and you're emotionally involved, and it's fantastic. This is a well done movie. I thought Regina King did a fantastic job. I thought early on that her accent sort of kind of comes and goes, but then I realized at the end or during the movie that I think that was strategic for the real life character, where she had to talk one way versus talking
Yeah.
another way in her personal life. So I sort of put that aside and just focused on the story. And what an amazing story! Fantastic movie. I'm happy I was able to watch it last night.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
want to finish
Paul,
it.
for
I didn't
recommending it.
finish it, but I agree. You got to get through the first 20 minutes because I was struggling with that. So but I do want to finish it. So awesome. That's gonna wrap it up for us, guys. Next week we have on the tap, we have the new Godzilla. It's not versus Kong. It's
Godzilla X Kong.
X Kong. Yeah. So they're teaming up together, save the world.
Versus.
I'm slightly interested in this one, only because it's not on the top part of Earth. It's in the middle of Earth. So I think that's the only reason why I'm slightly intrigued.
Right.
I'm curious. Hopefully it works out. I'm not in love with the idea, but we'll see. And then there's also a Steve Martin documentary. Hopefully we'll check it out. There's probably some other stuff that'll be out, and we'll check them as well. But that's gonna wrap it us. Make sure you check out, like we mentioned, our old the new Ghostbusters. I'm sorry, we just reviewed a new episode of the old Ghostbusters,
right?
1984. Check that out. Check out our movie news. We have the Oscar review that we did. We hear our picks, and then also we have A Raisin in the Sun on our Paul's old ass movie classics, and Hang 'em High if you haven't seen that one. That one's a really good episode too. So a lot of content we're gonna keep pushing out. Thank you guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And with that, Pete, that is a cut. Thanks, guys.